Hi everyone, and welcome back to Liz Sews. Today I wanted to introduce you a new sort of series that I'm going to be putting up on my channel that I'm calling Disney Bounding in the Bedroom. So I had this idea back in January. I've been really excited about it, but trying to keep sort of like tight-lipped. I don't think a lot of people know what I was planning. So the last 2 months I've just spent, collecting materials, getting ideas, thinking about different ways to attack things, and I'm really excited to start actually making the projects. So the idea is that every single month I'll be focusing on a different Disney character and recreating lingerie inspired by them. So these aren't necessarily going to be, like screen accurate representations or something like that. It's just my idea of sort of merging this Disney fantasy aspect that I grew up with my particular skill set, which happens to be sewing lingerie. These are not intended to be functional pieces. They're really just fun fantasy things that I can make. Obviously, at this point in time, I have way more bras than I can ever wear reasonably. So, I'm not intending to get a whole lot of use out of these finished garments, but I'm just really excited about the prospect of making fun fantasy lingerie that is inspired by things that we are all familiar with. So for the month of March, I thought I would start out with Merida. It seemed entirely appropriate considering my March green sewing theme. And so in this video, I'm going to be sketching out, you're going to see the design process, as well as the different fabrics and my ideas for how to attack it. There will probably be a second video this month going over the patterning. I have an idea. I'm pretty sure that this Merida concept that I came up with is going to require me to sort of mix and match from a bunch of different patterns and some troubleshooting as well. So I thought it would be interesting seeing the patterning process. And then of course there will also be a construction process video shot in the style of my project logs. So I hope you guys are excited about seeing Disney Bounding in the Bedroom. As I said, I had already planned on which 9-10 characters that I'm going to be sewing up this year, but let me know down in the comments which character you love the most and which ones you would love to see, because maybe I can switch some things around. We'll never know. So without further ado, let's get started on working on Merida. So it's been a couple weeks since I made this sketch. I'm not entirely sold on it. I may change up some things as I'm going along, but I've at least gone ahead and collected materials that I want to use to make this bodysuit. So my first inclination was to use the Simplicity 8513 pattern. Obviously, we have these really nice bell sleeves here, and I thought it would give me a good start. However, this bodysuit does not fit me particularly well. I definitely need to lengthen it. And I took a look at the pattern pieces and I'm not really sure. The bust line and the waistline aren't marked on there super clearly. And so I'm not exactly confident of like how I should lengthen it. So I think what I'm going to do instead is go ahead and use my base bodysuit block, which I developed last month for the main portion of the bodysuit itself, and then I might go ahead and add these sleeves onto it. I will need to do a little bit of configuration on the sleeve cap to make sure that the sleeve cap matches the arm side of the bodysuit, but I think that will get me a little bit better off. And you can see in the original design I had sort of like a V-neck that goes into a laced up section. So this particular pattern has the option for a lace-up section, but this lace-up section goes all the way below the underbust and extends to the neckline, and I don't think I like that as much. So I think what I'm going to do is actually try to mimic this. Maybe not a V-neck, because that might be kind of hard. Maybe do a scoop neck and then cut into the neckline down, finishing the edge with fold-over elastic. So, you know, pattern issues aside, in terms of what I'm going to do, obviously I'll go over this in more detail in the construction video for this project, but I thought we could at least look at the fun materials that I will be using for it. So the main body of the bodysuit is going to be this absolutely luscious green velvet. So this one was purchased from Fabric Wholesale Direct, I believe. It is a stretch velvet. You can see it has a really nice shine and sheen, and I think it's going to work great for that regal look. It has stretch, a little bit of stretch in one direction and much more stretch in the other direction. So I need to make sure that the heavier direction of stretch is going to be what goes around my body, because the length of a bodysuit should be designed so that you don't need much stretch. In this direction, you need most of the stretch on the side to side direction. So this is going to be my main fabric. I also purchased this trim, which ended up being quite a bit wider than I was expecting. I think the problem was that it was listed in centimeters, and my centimeter to inches conversion is not fabulous, because I'm a stupid American who is not very good at converting it to metric. But it looks like it's about 1 3/4 inches, which is quite wide. So luckily the store offered this same exact trim in sort of like half the width. So it'll end up being just under 1 inch wide. So I've ordered that. It has not come in yet. So what I'm thinking is this wider trim I'm going to be using along sort of the bell sleeve area, and then I'll use the narrower trim around the neckline, just because I think that it'll look better to have a narrower trim around the neckline. And in my sketch, I had put trim around the neck hole edges, but then, you know, thinking about this really needs to stretch around the legs to get a nice, good fit, and this trim does not stretch. So I'm probably not going to be using the trim around the leg hole edges. I'm just going to use it on the sleeve and the neckline. But I really do like this combination. The backing on this trim is a black velvet, but I think it works well with this rich dark hunter green velvet, and I love, you know, the gold accents. It definitely gives me that sort of Merida vibe. And then the last thing I picked up is just some rat tail, is it called rat tail string? And that's going to be what's going to form my sort of like strings up here. I do have grommets and a grommet setter, so I'm probably going to be putting those eyelets in. The eyelets will be through this actual trim itself, and then that way I can string it up in its little like sort of corset zigzaggy fashion, and I think that'll look really nice. The Simplicity pattern puts in little rouleau loops to form the crisscross sections of the ties, but I just think that having grommets will look a little bit more professional and look a little bit nicer. But I'm really happy about these materials, so be sure to come back next week when I start putting together my Merida inspired look, and I'll see everyone next time. Take care.